on Facebook. Anybody can confirm that? If that is working fine, and then we can start because we're already delayed entirely. Sheikh Omar's fault. Don't choke, don't choke, don't choke.
Yeah, not knowing how to work those lights on you. Well, we know the truth.
You know what it is? Yeah, I got so excited last time when I was doing this. I was thinking, you know, let me try and do this and see. I'm so smart. And then halfway through, I realized I didn't know what was going on. Right? I don't know whether Facebook is caught up or not. Anybody on Facebook? Is there anybody there that? Yep, it's working. I think they're saying it's working. Okay, alhamdulillah. All right. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Allahumma salli wa sallim wa barik ala nabiyyina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'een. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, everybody. Jazakumullah khair for tuning in. It's myself and Sheikh Omar Suleiman this particular Sunday after last week's original session. We're not going to waste too much time. The title, you'll remember, of the presentation was Protecting Our Families in a Time of Crisis, with a focus in the first session on children, and you saw all of that last week, and I also on the Facebook page, and I think in the Zoom link, they'll put in the link to the previous video. But today we wanted to continue with our guest, Sheikh Omar. Bismillah.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Thank you for having me on your show. It's about time. I never thought I'd get invited.
Show, huh? We're gonna go there like that, yeah? I told you, don't get dirty, Yara. Don't play any little moves.
I'm just happy to be on your show, man.
I wish this was my show.
That everyone's talking about, mashallah. All the compassionate acts that you're doing, taking care of your neighbor. How's your neighbor doing?
It doesn't come natural, by the way. Let me tell you that much. I have to watch 15 Omar Suleiman videos to be able to get the compassion to go and knock on the door. It doesn't come natural, bro.
What's her name again?
Jean.
Jean. How's she doing? Did you take her some milk? Did you milk her goats today?
You know, I went to her house yesterday because I forgot to take her some potatoes, and so I looked into the front window and she's there and she's watching her TV and she's like this. I looked at her for, oh my God. And then she went like that. I thought, but she's falling asleep here. So then I balanced the potatoes outside. You know what it is? The problem with the social distancing is that I don't even want her to come close to me now as well, because, you know, situation is a bit, you know, she's obviously old. We've got to try and protect her. But anyway, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protect us all. Right, folks. So what we want to do is widen the scope of this particular discussion. Last week we kind of focused only on children as part of the family. Obviously this is part of Protect This House, which is the online class which closes in 3 days, and that class is covering all the first 100 hadith of Al-Adab al-Mufrad by Imam al-Bukhari alayhi rahmatullah. It's a commentary on that with a view to explaining parenting, family ties, and the challenges with parents and the obligation to look after them and what it means and all of the challenges that come with that. And there's some sections on spouses and then working women as well, and all the issues that challenge the internal structure. Of course, that's become super relevant right now because people have kind of, you know, recognized their family members for the first time after a long time. And, you know, it's producing some interesting reflections for people. So we want to plug into that and then allow you guys then to go to the class afterwards to then get the full deal. But myself and Sheikh Omar are going to do it like we did last week, which is that we have 5 questions for each other that have not been vetted. I don't know what he's going to ask me. And he doesn't know what I'm going to ask him. And the first couple are going to be about closing off the subject of children. We've got a lot of comments that they want to know a bit more about that and want more depth in that. But we also want to speak about the rest of the family, and in particular, some of the more vulnerable members of the family. And I also want to maybe mention issues of spouses. But I'm going to kick off the questions, all right? So my first question is, why did you not tell us that you have a sideline in trying to be a gangster? Like, what I just want to know that, because we know that that's not your natural state. For me, I mean, this is what I look like all the time. I'm miserable day and night. Yeah. But why are you trying to look hard? And why are you trying to be a bad man? Is that because you've always wanted to be a gangster?
I didn't even know that picture was being taken, man. I was just sitting on the couch.
Right. And for you to smile, okay, it's just like, you know, when I smile, like you smile normally, I have to get a massage for 1 hour because my face hurts so much. Yeah. So I want to know how that happens. That's the first question that we want to ask you. How is it that a person can smile that much, that easily? I mean, surely it's got to hurt. Is it May who's doing the massage, or is it Aboudi, or who's got the responsibility for recovering?
Leave my kids out of this, so you're gonna get that other face, all right? You know, our kids are off.
Your kids have never seen that, okay? Never. What is that, man? Is this
they haven't seen the other guy.
Let me tell you something. You know, I never got a thank you, man. After this picture, I made you famous, yeah? And then...
That's true, man. I was nobody.
I made you famous.
I was looking for someone to sign me, and then once we put out that album, then that was it, man. That was a wrap. I got signed. Right, okay. Was that a question, or was that
yeah, you wish. Yeah, you wish. All right, here's what we're going to start with. Those folks who were with us last week will remember that the discussion with Sheikh Yasser was about children and about aspirations and about bringing them up according to Islamic values. And you'll have seen that I discussed that there's a difference, definitely a marked difference between the more conservative, more well-established. I say well-established, I mean longer established, that's probably more accurate. Muslim community in the UK, more ghettoized, more socioeconomic levels is lower. And that generally has a more kind of, for the sake of argument, we'll say more conservative approach. And Americans are seen as more liberal. Would that then translate itself into the way that we bring up our children and our values or our aspirations for them? And what Sheikh Yasser was, as you would have seen, he was like, you know what it is? I'm going to not go hard with respect to, you know, their Quran and their Arabic and their whatever, but rather I'm more worried about their Aqidah, which I know that you share, because obviously Yaqeen was set up with the idea to protect people's Aqidah. Now, which is great, of course, and it's important for identity to be protected. That's the biggest threat, of course. Secularism and so on is the biggest threat. But if the practicing classes, the scholarly classes, are not going to put pressure upon themselves to make sure that their children, in a time 20, 30 years where everybody's going to be just, you know, professionals and doctors and God knows what, and the scholarly classes are going to be few, they're already desperately few as it is, then who's going to step up for that? So I want to know whether you have a different take to Sheikh Yasser, or is this a common American scholarly thread? That's my first question.
So I think you have to sort out, I think you got to sort out the difference between the pressure of being the child of someone that plays a public role in the community and the unique pressure of being the child of a sheikh or an imam or a da'i, or someone that's in the capacity of da'wah, which only compounds that, right? So generally speaking, the child of a public figure, and public does not mean on Facebook alone. It means someone that's, you know, that's got a position in the local masjid, that's got some sort of a public domain where they're looked to for moral guidance. The children will quickly sniff out discrepancies. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protect us. Allahumma ameen. Because it's scary, right? They'll quickly sniff out. And sometimes those discrepancies are not like moral discrepancies. Those discrepancies are just, look, I mean, when you're out in the public, you kind of, if you're a public figure, if part of your public work is interacting with people and really giving them a hyper level of attention and being held to a certain standard, just like with any other job, when you come home, you kind of want to, you know, take a break, right? So they might even, so the discrepancy could not, it's not necessarily like you're a cheat at home and you're a great person on the outside. It could be, you know, you mentioned the smile. You know, I hope my kids remember me for a smile, man. Like I really do, you know, and I'm being real, because I worry about that sometimes. You're so consumed by public work, and then do you bring that same attitude and regimen home? So that could be a discrepancy, right? And if they notice any discrepancy, unfortunately, because I think society will blame religion quickly, And there's already an association of religion with moral hypocrisy that exists in society, right? And that's not just true of us as a minority, by the way. If that's true in Muslim majority countries too, right? You hear all these jokes about the sheikh taking off his lahya at night, his beard at night, put it in the closet, put it back on, all these jokes. And it's true with religion as a whole, wherever we are. So if they notice a discrepancy, their minds might go quickly to religion. That, oh yeah, this is what we all know about, deen. Religion as a whole is backwards. There's a lot of pontification, but there's not real practice behind it. And you have to be really hypersensitive to that. So I think that the aversion that our kids may have towards religion could be one of two things, uniquely to the children of du'at. One of them is that they're not getting the same amount of time, energy, love, respect. Worse is if there's a discrepancy, if there's an actual discrepancy of nifaq, of hypocrisy. Right, that's the worst case scenario for any of us, and may Allah protect us. The second one is breaking out of the shadow of your parents, your father or your mother, who's that public figure, da'iya. I want to be my own person, have my own identity. You got to understand. I mean, our kids, and I think my oldest is 10. Right, how old is Isa?
19.
19, and I think Sheikh Yasser's
Ahmad is 20 now. Yeah,
19, 20 as well, right? So it's different, right? I'm still kind of, I got to take advice from other parents that have had that, right? So right now, when I go to my kids' Islamic school, whether it's May or Abdullah, 10 and 7, they're excited. Okay, I can totally see how that will get annoying very quickly, because you get sick of being bint al-sheikh wa ibn al-sheikh. You get sick of being the child of the scholar, and you want to enforce your own identity. You want to forge your own path. Now, I think what you have to do then is you have to help them see the value of those pursuits independent of you. The value of those pursuits independent of you. And so in the same way that when you're talking to the community, it is, hifd al-Quran, what's the value of hifd al-Quran? What unique value does it bring to you as a person? What's the value of ilm? What's the value of deen? What does it bring to you as a person? You have to repackage that and give it to your kid. And it can't be dad to son or mom to daughter. It's just got to be a sincere advisor and another voice in their minds. So that they're seeing their pursuit of the Quran as unique. They're seeing their pursuit of the deen as unique to them, that fits them. And I think that, and I don't want to go too long on this because it will take all day, but subhanAllah, I think that with a lot of people, what they realize, the identity crisis where someone wants to sort of, affirm their own identity, independent of the sheikh, independent of dad, independent of mom, independent of the community. I want to be myself right now. One thing that I do believe is that good parenting will always anchor someone back. I mean, everyone's going to go through that phase, right? Son of a scholar, son of an artist, whatever it is. But good parenting, you plant those seeds and you hope it'll bring people back. And the last thing I'll say on that, subhanAllah, is isn't it amazing? You see the hidayah of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You see people come out of the most toxic environment. No deen there. I mean, parents are a mess. There's no religion present. And then they really, they rise to the occasion. And so
that was what Sheikh Yasser's point was, right? His point is that it actually is, instead of having such a pressurized focus on your own family, look for the community, for those people who will be coming out more naturally, right? Because we know, because we're from the same classes in that sense, in that, well, maybe you're different because your family is more practicing, quote unquote, family in terms of, scholarly and whatever. But in terms of many of us come from a very non-practicing background, come out, that natural love for not being what we used to be is what you normally prey on as a mentor. Find that person, build them. And they're not normally the kind of folks in a practicing family, because they don't go off the rails that much, because the house is so protected, right? Quote unquote. So you'll find a more natural fit, which makes a lot of sense, and it works, of course. But then, can you depend upon chance to find the next scholarly classes? You get the point?
Yeah, no, I get the point. But I think that it's not that the crazy environment bore the great Muslim. Sometimes that is the case, because tawbah is very powerful, repentance and redemption is very powerful. But I think it's the unique pursuit that that person uniquely had to pursue the deen. It's sort of like the whole, like when someone converts to Islam and they really, really value their deen. There's just so much. There's so much more there than those that have had the gift of Islam bestowed upon them from their parents and were raised with it, right? So I think that's what it is. And here's what I told Sheikh Yasser, because we had that conversation one time. If you listen to people, you know how we say on the individual level, put your janazah in front of you, think about what you want your kids to remember of you, right? If you think about what we often remember about our parents, it's what made them good people. And if you could connect what made them good people to deen, that's just such a beautiful thing. And so when I had my faith crisis, I tell my dad this all the time. And I've written about it, and it's very personal. I don't like to reveal that much about that. During the lecture about my mom, Allah yarhamha, was the hardest lecture I've ever given in my life. I rehearsed it 40 times at least before I gave it, so I wouldn't break down on stage. But I felt like people, could benefit from two things. Number one, your superhero could be your parents. Like my mom, Allah yarhamha, finished the Quran 14 times her last Ramadan in her life. That's stuff you read about Kutub as-Salaf, right? Like it's just crazy how she was doing it all the time. But what saved my deen was not my mom, Allah yarhamha, it was actually my dad, because of the ihsan he showed to my mom in her sickness. And the way he would carry her, the way he would support her, the way he would love her. And I knew that he did that from a place of deen. He did that because he felt like the deen forced him to have those ideals of wafa and love. And he would report it back to the Prophet ﷺ. The way that he treated her, all those years of cancer and sickness, like that was to him, like that was his way of living the sunnah with my mom. So interestingly enough, my dad's example is what pulled me close to the deen, because I came to the place to say there's no way my dad would have been like that without the example of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And then what enhanced my deen was my mom, Allah yarhamha, was like, what is it, like how in the world did that woman have that high of a degree of love for the deen, and what that did in terms of her khair for the world, I mean for people, was just incredible, right? So that was the enhancement. So if anything, my dad's part is the one that pulled me in, because I had to say to myself, if it wasn't for deen, he would not have been like that. And then for my mom, it's like, that's just ihsan, and it sets an example for me that I have to spend the rest of my life trying to reach, right? So if I remember my parents doing good things, and I can say they did those good things because their deen manufactured that in them, it's the same thing with da'wah to everyone else, right? It was rooted in the Quran and the Sunnah and the person of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And so I want to have that same ethic. And so that's the opposite of the discrepancy, right? That's the opposite of moral hypocrisy, or, my dad and my mom are different on the inside of the house in a bad way. They're not able to meet that level. And so, yes, I do think we can generate ulama in our midst. I do think we can generate, we can generate people that love da'wah and that love to do khair, khidmah, in whatever way in our midst, inshallah ta'ala. If we root it properly, and then we pass it on properly to them.
Jazakallah khair. Akramakallah. All right, yours.
My question for you. It speaks more about, it's along the same lines that we were mentioning, but I think you're someone, and by the way, this wasn't a question I was going to ask you, but I'm going to ask you now because it's a tough one. All right?
Competing, man.
You've got boys in particular, and your boys see you and they're with you. I've seen them with you in the community. You take them to the masjid. They've been alongside you. And you actually have passed on Hifz al-Quran to them, right?
Alhamdulillah, yeah.
Alhamdulillah. So I think my question to you in particular is, and this is going to be really personal, have your boys ever come to you expressing disappointment in something you said or did within the capacity of being a sheikh, and how did you handle that in particular? You said dig deep, not to go easy, right?
Yes, a good question, man. That's hard.
Did they ever say, for example, like, I disagree with something you said, I disagree with, like, when was the first time you heard one of your boys say, like, I didn't like what you said there, I thought that was off, I thought that I didn't.
So obviously, as you know, personalities are very different, right? And I don't mean just that amongst the boys and the kids, but I mean So my personality is very different to yours, is very different to Yasser's, and so on. And I would have to, and because I'm struggling right now. I'm not one of those folks who have any problem speaking personally. The whole class Protect This House is literally a personal journey from beginning to end, right? It's literally, I realized that on YouTube, the original trailer for the class, right, is there, and Issa's like 9 years old, and the Imani's like a couple of years old, and they're sitting there on the sofa, and we played a little game for the trailer. This class has put me out bare, and I wanted to make sure that I shared that entire journey from them being schooled and so on. And I would have to think in that journey, and I cannot actually remember being challenged on an Islamic point or a moral point in terms of from a Dini point. Fairness, absolutely. That's not right. That's not fair. But that I don't classify that the same. You don't mean that, do you? Right?
No. I mean, you said your boys are old enough now to where they can disagree or say like, absolutely. Hey, I didn't get that. I don't think that's right.
Yeah. So I understood you first time, and I have to be honest and say that I've not heard that yet. Is that because they are? So alhamdulillah, they're very, very studious, and what I mean by that is that they know that in this house, study is the way to, knowledge is the absolute number one commodity. And so they have been studying non-stop. If it's not from me, and primarily their mother, and then it's myself, and then all their teachers. And they have a huge number of teachers in different countries via internet, on site, locally, and so on and so forth. And the good thing about the mashallah is that they understand their place. Okay, they understand that knowledge is a key. They have the ability to open that door, to go in and start debating and discussing with people once they have the prerequisite of knowledge. They do not speak out of turn in that sense. And so I'm happy with that. I'm happy with that, not because it protects me, but because I want them to be able to challenge me with authority. Okay. Now, when the kids were young, young, obviously you have the fun kind of types of challenge where they don't understand what they're doing. I remember Yahya, saying that, I don't think that you're doing this right. And he wrote me a card, and, and he wrote in the ayah, Allahumma fil abi, innahu kana min ad-dhalin. Okay. So, which if anybody's listening is from the Quran. He was not happy, and he was memorizing the Quran at the time, and that's an ayah of Ibrahim alayhi salam speaking about his uncle. And Abi in the Quran is used in the sense of uncle, and he said that, oh Allah, forgive my uncle, indeed he was from the misguided, and he gave that to me. So these are the exceptions, of course, which again is not what you're referring to, but as a straight up challenge, no. Always though, there is, I don't think that's fair, so I will challenge back. And that's my job. My job has been to instill confidence. Okay, because that's the problem. If you don't get challenged on content because they don't have the ability to, because you're more knowledgeable than them, because you are able to debate them, and of course I teach fiqh, right? And so they're seeing me day and night, always speaking about evidences. So and so says this, so and so says that. This is what the evidence. So they're seeing me always putting, and they know that they're going to come to me. They better bring their A game. You get what I'm saying? So they're already under that pressure. Now, that means naturally they're very cautious. That's worrying for me. I've got to make sure that they do not then, crawl into a shell. They've got to develop their personality. So what I've been pushing in my children, that's something I encourage every parent, is to identify their strong points that they can have confidence in and then push them in that. So for example, I'll share something. I do not like leading the prayer. I don't enjoy it. The pressure of leading the prayer itself is something that people don't recognize. I don't like giving khutbah, for example, even though I lecture day and night. I teach,
whatever. Come on, man. You don't like giving khutbah? What are you talking about?
Yeah, I can count on one hand the amount of khutbahs I've given in the last 10 years. And it'll probably be 5.
Wow.
Yeah. Okay. There's probably 5. Yeah. Maybe less, actually. I don't like giving khutbah. There's something about the member of the Prophet ﷺ which hurts me a lot. And that's my own thing. But in terms of teaching and the same content or deeper or more pressured, if you're talking about audiences, but that's day and night, right? So it's just something about that. And salah. Whereas Isa, since he was young, mashallah, and the other ones as well, but just to focus on the eldest one, I've always told him that you are far better than I ever was and ever will be at leading. And I've seen his confidence in that. So my point is that although I've not been challenged from a knowledge point of view, and I hope that one day that does happen, the important part now for me is to make sure that I don't allow them to sit on, and to crawl into their shell. And we've got to make sure. And that's why I like Confident Muslim. The Yaqeen, it's called Confident Muslim, isn't it? Yeah?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, the sub-project of Yaqeen Institute. I think that the future is not just about protecting people from, ilhad and atheism and secular humanism, whatever, but to make sure that those folks, individuals that have got something to show are really put out there and they feel that. Because, it's infective. You see someone else doing it, you believe that you can do it. You see someone else doing a poem, like my kids, my younger ones, they love Buna Muhammad. Goodness gracious, right? They love Buna. They're like day and night, spitting bars, love it. They're not the younger ones. And these things are infectious. So that balance between knowing your place, don't speak out of turn until you've got the knowledge, but you've got the right to challenge me as long as you've got the knowledge. Yeah, that's what I'd say.
So it's actually funny you mentioned that, and I think it connects to the first question. I've noticed that with the children of Mashayikh, they enjoy listening to other Mashayikh.
Oh yeah, standard. Flipping Qadi, man, in this house, man. The fish. Honestly, man. That's my nutting. We have a saying. Obviously, all the packs online will love this one. Gar ka murgi, dal barabar.
I have no idea what you just said, but it sounded pretty violent.
Man, of course you do, man. You're an honorable. The roast chicken or the chicken which is cooked at home is only equal to lentils.
So you're a roasted chicken who's being treated like adis? Is that what I'm understanding?
That's exactly what's happening here, bro.
Okay. So when Sheikh Yasser, when May saw Sheikh Yasser, she said, "Oh, Baba, that's the Sheikh on Mama's phone." I was like, "Oh, we're yeah." Yeah, so my kids enjoy watching other mashayikh, obviously, and I've noticed that with in general with other mashayikh as well. And I even noticed, one of my favorite teachers, Sheikh Amr Shishani, Hafidhullah Ta'ala. I remember, like, it was my teacher in Bukhari, my first teacher in Bukhari, and I remember his 15-year-old son was just kind of like whatever about him, but then he'd see the other mashayikh in the masjid and it was like, whoa. And you just saw his eyes light up. And I've noticed that to just be a consistent trend. And I think it's healthy to encourage our kids then to find, because that's one thing that they might be deprived of, right? If the only sheikh I know or sheikha I know is my parents, then, and I'm trying to escape out of their shadow, then, I hope there are other teachers and mashayikh to guide them along the way and that they feel comfortable going to and benefiting from. So it really lights my heart when I see, May is 10 now, and I see her watching other mashayikh on YouTube. I'll just walk in and I'll find her listening to a lecture, and it just lights my heart, because that sheikh I might have been on a WhatsApp group with that sheikh, but it's like, alhamdulillah, like, if my kids find their unique journey. Abdullah Aboudi is my qari. He's a Quran, mashallah, and he loves the Quran. So when I see him, like, he's actually got like favorite qaris now. He's 7. He's got his favorite qaris, and like I see that and I'm like, that's pretty legit. That they find their own way. So we have to kind of facilitate that, I think, as people of da'wah, to where, as long, it doesn't have to be us that's giving them the da'wah. They've got to find their own da'wah as well.
And what's the plan for Aboudi? I mean, is he actually the imam or what?
No, he hasn't. He does the adhan and iqamah. I was telling subhanAllah, man, like with the quarantine, praying salah in jama'ah as a family is incredible. If those are, if we didn't do it as a habit until now, every once in a while we do it, but now, like, it's very intentional because the masjid is closed, and so just praying salah in jama'ah is just really great, alhamdulillah. So no, he hasn't led salah yet, but inshallah he'll be leading salah soon.
Soon, inshallah. You know what? I'm gutted. I gave the greatest example in human history of Urdu thingy, right? And they said they didn't even hear it, and I don't even speak Urdu very well. And at the moment that I said it, the flipping sound went. So I've got to repeat it just for my own. Is that Gar ka murgi dal barabar? Okay, remember that one. Say it
I don't
again. Say
even, I don't even speak
Garka,
Urdu.
garka murgi.
Look, I don't even speak Urdu, and I can tell you're saying it wrong. I can hear the accent. You know, you can speak it. So.
Wallahi, you know what? You know, obviously the Paks, yeah, they're vicious, yeah. They hate Pathans anyway, and then they hate their Urdu even more. We are so rubbish at speaking Urdu, man. It is really bad. So when I
Don't
speak
blame,
it, I'm
don't
like
blame
a
all your people.
coconut. Yeah, I need Pathan speaking. Oh man, I get cussed, man. But anyway, alhamdulillah. At least this is right. This is right. Anyway, right.
Okay.
Key. Let me put you on this in this situation. What's become super clear in this particular quarantine is just how little we appreciate the family, their little quirks, their identities. We're starting to, you know, people are in super contact. And obviously, lots of jokes about this, a lot of memes about that as well. I think that people had that little high at the beginning of the quarantine, and now we're in that kind of period where people are starting to become fed up. And I want to speak about obviously the domestic violence that's increased. But before I come to that, before I do come to domestic violence, I think that what has happened with respect to our attention span with our children over the last 5 years, and then in quarantine now as the period has gone on, is that we become very quickly bored of the human experience because we're so excited by the digital one. Our obsession with phones is there. Now, you know, and I'm going to be very straight up, I find yourself and Sheikh Yasser, whatever, completely glued to your phone. Drives me absolutely nuts. And you remember that, and still does that. And I really, really get upset by that. Now, I'm not saying that as a goody two shoes. I just hate my phone. There's something in my heart. I hate the WhatsApp, the messaging services, blah, blah, blah. And I try to avoid that as much as possible. But I know that whilst you are very heavy phone user, you're also one of those who will go straight into that, whatever they call it, when you abandon your phone. You've done that a few times. What do they call it again?
Phone fast, social media fast.
Phone fast. Yeah, social media fast. Yeah.
No, so now honestly doing tech fast as a whole. Don't even have
tech, you know, the whole whatever. You've tasted both sides. And my theory back on the issue of kids is that, so I only gave Isa, much to his annoyance, okay, a phone last year. And, you know, these are things that none of the kids will forgive me for another few years, but no one else in my, and I have, you know, someone who's nearly 18, or 17, 16, 15, all this kind of kids, right? And they're absolutely obsessed with getting a phone. They're not going to get a phone. And obviously there's a theory about trying to manage it. If you don't give them a phone, then they'll never know how to use it. Then it'll be a mess up. And I accept that school. You've got to show rules and you've got to whatever. And then you've got my school, which is not a chance until they're an adult of exactly of what it is. So you, having seen both sides, for me, what you're seeing in terms of the family now split back up again, and now everyone's now separate, and the kids are now just playing their games now. The first few days was all about links being thrown around, the free resources, maths, this, that, Google doing this, BBC have launched this big campaign. Everyone is really focused. Now everyone's out in the garden, kids are playing, everyone's chilling, and we're just now very comfortable now, 10, 15 webinars in, we're doing a webinar every day, and we've just gone back to our normal separate lives, but in our own houses. I genuinely think that this is because our attention span to our devices is more of a love than our family. What do you think about that?
So I think you're absolutely right. I mean, I think that tech addiction is not just a problem for the kids being glued to the screens. It's us being glued to our chats and to our text messages and to checking the news and stuff like that. So everyone's got their own addiction and their own attachment to their devices. And you know, subhanAllah, like one of the things that we put on our kids, right? We got time limits. So you know, again, none of my kids have a phone. They're not old enough to have phones. I'll probably.
When's it going to happen? What age are you looking to do that?
I'll probably, you know, and you know, alhamdulillah, my wife is stricter than I am with this stuff.
Alhamdulillah.
Good for her, you know, alhamdulillah, all power to her. So she's more strict with the tech stuff, and that's a good thing, inshallah. So we'll probably be on the later side of things, because, you know, I look at childhood friends, I look at those whose technology was a lot more limited than us, and they were upset with their parents at the time. They definitely felt disadvantaged, but you know what? They excelled when they grew up. When they went to school, they excelled. They excelled in their personalities. They excelled in their accomplishments. They excelled in their perception, their ability to grasp. And so I think, you know, I'd rather that my kids be a little bit more upset about not having as much access to technology now, but thank me later for it, which I think will happen if we do it right. So we do give them technology, but there are two things that, and almost anything good that's happening in my house, and that's my wife's doing. So for example, you know, Abdullah will play 10 minutes of a game on the iPad, but he has to finish 30 minutes of Quran first. Okay, so like guarding it with the Quran, and then it's still limited. That's one thing. The other part of that, I think, is that subhanAllah, for us as adults, a lot of the tips that we give our kids are good for us as well. So for example, when it comes to social media usage, I like, and behind the scenes, I talked about this, those of you that took behind the scenes. And I fall short of this sometimes myself, by the way. So let me just be clear. I just want to be very clear that, like, I think it's a great practice to guard your social media usage with Azkar al-Sabah. You wake up in the morning, you're not allowed, even if it's after sunrise, as a matter of discipline and practice, you're not allowed to open Facebook, Twitter, whatever it is that you're opening, until you finish your morning Azkar, your morning remembrances. You guard your social media usage by, okay, I'm going to get in it, and then you limit that time. And one of the big eye openers for me was, there's an app on, I don't know if it's an app, but Screen Time on our iPhones now actually tells you how much time you spend on the phone. And I remember the first time I looked at that, and I was like, whoa, you know, you don't think about it, right? It's so second nature to us. And that actually caused me to think very deeply about disciplining, you know, technology use. So limits, placing self-imposed limits on myself in terms of how much I'm allowed to use. Again, sometimes I fall short, but in theory and in partial practice, right? Putting limits on how much I'm allowed to use certain apps, for how long is my phone allowed. And I check my screen time every week to make, you know, to see if there's a trend, right? If it's going up or down. So it's important to self-impose limits. Having seen, now getting into the family side of this, one of the things that we're doing now is we're playing games together as a family, but it's like, subhanAllah, we're taking it back to like just the basic old school games, right? So like our favorite game is hot potato, you know, like it's just, we just literally throw around the ball and do hot potato, right? Like, and whoever has it at the time is it, right? You don't know what it is, you gotta look it up online. I'm not gonna sing the song for you right now, but like basic stuff, right? Like going back to like some of those basic games, you know what, that's the kids' favorite thing to do. Like their favorite thing to do is an old school game, but we play together and we have that time together. It's daily, it's not long, but it's what they look forward to. Now, with the screen time stuff, however, and I'll end with this, I think it's important to put away the phone. You know, for example, when you're having lunch, when you're having breakfast, when you're eating together as a family, put away the phone altogether. Everyone has to talk. Everyone has to eat together and speak together. What I'd also say is that where there is some gaming that's going to be done, like if I, you know, so my kids play 10 minutes with me on my phone. So check this out. And I'm not saying this is a good practice. I'm just giving, you know, what I'm doing right now, right? So I have a game for me and a game for Abdullah on my phone, 10 minutes each. We play it together. So even though it's technology, there's still some family bonding time. So the way we play together, you lose, then I go, then you lose, and I go, and then we do it in 10 minutes. It's over. Great time, 10 minutes. No one got addicted. No one spent too much time. And there was some family bonding that was in that as well. So I think technology is good in moderation, but find a way to introduce checks to where when they're used, it comes after something that purifies the heart. And then the second thing is doing it together if you can, where there's room to do together. And don't underestimate the value of some of those old school games that are just basic, but they have great bonding time embedded within them.
Okay.
So my turn. My turn to question you? Okay, sorry, man. I'm not used to this format.
I gotta say, man, you are so lame, Yani. I don't know what you want me to do, Yani. Just send up a sign like that. Your turn.
I'm sorry. I'm used to moderators and proper setups. And
Allahu Akbar. Hafsa,
yeah.
you heard that, yeah? Oh my days, you just dissed our girl Hafsa hardcore.
No, she's great, but she's in the background right now. All right, so,
Miskina.
all right. My question to you, Mr. I Hate Technology, is social media redeeming itself right now because of all the da'wah that's online?
So my answer is that it? That's it? That's the question?
Yeah, the second part of that is what do you fear when we do get our messages back? Do you fear that some of the ways that things have moved on online, you know, there's this whole idea of like the world order has changed forever through this pandemic, right? Are you afraid that some of the things are going to stay online now that have sort of been moved online? Like we're actually introducing a layer that's a little uncomfortable where we're not acknowledging anymore that this is suboptimal. Okay, like that this is not the best way to go about things.
So the second, I'll do the second one first. Not afraid at all. Not afraid at all. Alhamdulillah. This deen of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has done great without us, and it will do even better without us afterwards. And you know what people have realized? How much they needed the masjid. Yeah, and we'll be there, honestly, every Fajr, every Isha, making announcements, brothers, sisters, please keep coming to the Jama'ah, keep coming to Jama'ah. In our masjid, you know, you obviously been there, Cheeto, right? That is a regular occurrence certainly every day. And one of these two prayers, Imam will turn around and give a quick reminder. No books, no nothing, just a quick reminder. And almost always it will be about keep coming, keep coming. I don't think you'll need to be saying that for a long time. And I don't just mean the counter reaction or the release of relief that everyone's going to rush. That's going to happen. You're going to see when this is over, people are going to flock to the haram. People are going to flock for umrah. People are going to flock to the masjid. That's going to happen. But I mean actually that I do think that our institutions are now going to be valued more. These locations are going to be valued more. People are starting to become aware of Islamic realities that they weren't aware of before. Like, for example, the issue of the whole, people passing away and the need for them to be buried and whatnot. There are people out there that think this is like the first time this has happened. They don't realize that people are passing away every single day, and there's always been a shortage of people who are trained to do it and do it properly. Today we did a ghusl for an uncle, and I had a number of the volunteers there to make sure that they understand how to do it for a COVID patient, and effectively, those who knew, there were some who knew, I have someone who had no idea. Those who knew, they said there was no difference between that and the Sunnah Ghusl. I said, oh well, absolutely. That's the whole point. That we have to educate the people that there's nothing new here. So I do think that Deen is going to continue strong, and I don't think that these online things will damage that. I think they won't damage that. Just to answer that second point. But for the first one, no, I don't think that social media has redeemed itself, because in my question to you, you focused on the aspect of time and benefit and making sure that you have control, which is important. But what I really was hoping that you would speak about, and now you will, is what the impact of the small time, I'm talking about the controlled minimal time, has had on the way that we interact with human beings. Like you will know more than anyone, you're attacked day and night. Yeah, we're all attacked day and night online. And these people, they're like lions, right? They call them keyboard jihadis, keyboard warriors, whatnot. But they are the biggest social introverts that you've ever seen when you come across them in real life. And you always come across them because someone else tells you this is so-and-so. They never have the wherewithal to be able to present themselves. They don't have that ability and so on. So it's clear, we know that social media really plays with the minds of people, and it reprograms their personality, their identity, their conscience, their entire being. Now, that is an easy, cheap example to pick on. The real example we need to focus on is how much we appreciate being with our partners. Okay, how much we appreciate being with our children, and how bored we get, And how and why is it that our children they are in the state that they are is because we did not put in the hard yards with them, because you get bored very quickly with children. It's the, you know, when I say that, people think they're 4-year-old and 3-year-old, and that's just nonsense. You could spend a whole year playing around with your 3-year-old and a 4-year-old. Let's see you do that with your 14-year-old. Let's see you do that with your 16-year-old. Let's see you do that with your 11-year-old who's putting hijab on and says, I hate you for making me do this. Let's see you spend that a level of time and love investment with your children when that 5-10 minutes of, let's imagine you're super big on your screen time and all your restrictions, but you are getting such a titillation of your friends, your heroes, your role models, or addictive videos, prank videos, the gamers, this, that, whatever the genre of the actual thing is, there's so much entertainment out there. And I remember Hamza Yusuf himself said, I don't know what, 10 years ago, he goes, the entertainment industry has only one aim, and that is to entertain you to death. And that is absolutely spot on. The level of investment that goes into these different fields of entertainment is specialized stuff. You know, I'm sure you've given lectures on it. I certainly have, about how scientifically the investment goes in to ensure that people are attracted by red as a notification color versus X. It's all meant to reprogram the mind. When it's reprogrammed, I'm telling you that we are struggling. And if you look now, if, you know, they say absence makes the heart grow fonder. Well, we've got to be careful now that the opposite doesn't come true now with our spouses in this crisis. If absence makes the heart grow fonder, what we're realizing is that time with our spouses and our families is actually pushing us apart. You're starting to rediscover, and your qadr of each other is coming down because of how much more exciting, more prioritized in our minds everything else is. So that's my real concern. And I don't think social media will ever be able to redeem it because of that permanent damage that has occurred. Allahu A'lam.
You're right. You know, subhanAllah, I think just as a nasiha, and you know, there's one hadith that scares me. You know, the Prophet ﷺ mentioned, you know, that the worst of people is the one with two faces, who goes to this group of people with this face and this group of people with this face. And that was a person in the same physical space with the same emotional, mental connections of a human interaction. But how many personalities do we have? Like when you meet someone, and, you know, actually, let me look inward, you know, let me just talk about myself, okay? If there's a discrepancy, we're talking about discrepancies in the Muslim community and discrepancies in the community space and then coming home. If there's a discrepancy between my online and my in-person, I'm a jerk in one of those two, okay? But I'm really nice in the other one of those two. Which one is really me? For the perspective of mujahadatun nafs, I should be thinking that the worst one is me, all right? And the other one is a convenient cover and a convenient escape. So if I'm really bad with my akhlaq and bad in different ways, like in one of those two realms, which one is actually me? I need to work on that one, because that's my real nature, and the other one is giving me some sort of a convenient cover. Now, that being said, and I want to point to something that struck me a few years ago. You know that famous saying, Sulaiman ibn Abd al-Malik, when he asked Abi Hazim, why do we hate death? And he said, لأنكم أمرتم دنياكم وخربتم آخرتكم فتكرهون الخروج من العمران إلى الخراب أو تكرهون الخروج.
الخروج, of course, yeah.
الخروج من العمران إلى الخراب. That why do we hate death? And he said, because you built your dunya and you've ruined your hereafter. So you hate to leave that which you've established to that which you haven't established. And psychologically, that's where we usually talk about a tazkiyah with life and death. But one of the things that we do is that we've got these realms in our lives. We got our workplace life, we got our social life, we got our family life, we got these baskets, right? And one of the things that can happen to us is that if we're ruined in one of them, we escape to the one that makes us feel like we have great worth and that we feel like we've established well. And so if I'm screwing up with my family life, I have the convenience to run to work and to just put in extra work because I feel good at work. I feel like I'm being appreciated. I feel like I'm growing at work. I feel like this is meaningful and valuable. Now you're stuck in the home. So what are you going to escape to now? Right? And hey, I'm going to escape to this. I feel good online. I feel good in this realm. I feel good at where you can literally create your own world.
Absolutely.
Right?
Complete
create
facade.
whatever world and persona, whatever you want. And that's a horrifying reality of escape. And that has implications, by the way, even with intimacy, right? So the like pornography, what it's doing to people's minds and what it's doing to people's hearts, and the destruction of it, right? It's not, it's increasing impotence, because people have created their online space. It's, you know, of inventory and intimacy, and they don't know how to be intimate in real life anymore, right? So subhanAllah, it is the destruction of the mind. It is the assault on it. I think the question that we always struggle with is how much of it can be redeemed. Okay, so we always tell ourselves as people of doubt, and I fall short, you know, when I go to a space, am I bringing the deen to that space, or am I compromising my deen in the process? So when I'm in this space on social media, we always tell ourselves we're here because we need to put in khayr, put in good, because people come here to consume all these other things. I joined Instagram last year because you're not on Instagram yet, right?
Yeah, you're not going to get me on it either.
Yeah. You know why I joined Instagram? Funny story, actually. I joined Instagram last year because there was a scammer that had built a whole like platform. Like he had like 30,000 followers with my name, and he was getting honorarium.
He was the original guy, man. What are you trying to make out? Yeah, he's the scammer. Yeah. Come on, he was the original guy, man. What are you hitting on him for?
Check it. So I joined Instagram, and I got kicked off for being a scammer. I joined to get rid of him, and then Instagram booted me because they said I was impersonating him. So I was like, all right, I'm going to get this guy. So I had to go through all types of things to get him off. But I remember, you know, when I quit Snapchat, I joined Snapchat for like a few weeks. I quit Snapchat because when I went
this is why we're not friends most of the time. You see, now you're understanding, right?
I don't know what you're talking about, man. I quit Snapchat because I went to Muhammad Ali's janazah. Rahmatullah alayh. Muhammad Ali, the man has some, I mean, look, all the stuff that people know about him, the more I dig into his life and like his love for the deen is just, it's beautiful, man. The masajid he built that no one knew about, the 200 da'wah pamphlets he would sign a week, that even when he was sick, like the man loved the deen, and he's done so much good. And I was really like, it was humbling to be at his janazah. I'm talking about the janazah, not the spectacle afterwards.
Yeah, the actual one, yeah.
And the Snapchat just become like, it caught on at that time. Bro, people were praying janazah like this. It was disgusting. It was disgusting. People were praying janazah with one hand up so they could film Snapchat at that time, the janazah of Muhammad Ali. His family was sitting on the side. And some of his family, mashallah, like Maryam, Maymay, and Rashida, these are some of his daughters are really, really into deen, and mashallah, you know, wonderful sisters. Some of his family's not even Muslim. The Muslims, it was only Muslims then. They were walking up to the family, just holding up the phone in their faces. They're sitting in a section. It was like being in a zoo. All right, like you had them all like in this one section, the family sitting, and people were just walking up and doing this to them. I hated that. Like I was like, I'm done with this, right? And you know, I joined Instagram because I wanted to get rid of a scammer, but like it scares me, like how people, what people are doing with these things to themselves. And I don't want to just raise a bunch of red flags. I do think we should try to steer people back, inshallah ta'ala, to not just deen, but like some version of like self-purpose, find meaning in like your like be present where you are, physically present where you are. And you know, it's basic things, but like, you know, when you're in your grave, there's also a physical space there too, right? There's no, you know, we used to talk about, you know, and it still has value, the idea of the family fleeing from you on the day of judgment. You know, when the Prophet ﷺ says that three things follow the dead to the grave, and he mentioned money, family, and actions. You know, that two of them return back from the grave, the wealth and the family of a person, and the only thing that stays with him is his actions, his deeds. Like, be physically present where you are. You got to get back to that moment. SubhanAllah, what's around you, and better what's around you, like physically, the people that are actually around you, and don't escape to social media and recreate a more comfortable world. Like, fix your world where it's at right now. and engage this to a point that it's beneficial, just like everything else. Even leisure, engage it to a point that's beneficial.
Yeah, it is important because there are a few folks that, you know, are saying that, well, how would we even hear this if it wasn't for social media? How is it, whatever, whatnot? And, you know, I think these are disingenuous, to be honest. I mean, nobody is saying that social media is not important and that technology has not changed the world. But I think those people who know, they know what we're talking about. That there needs to be a very, very significant focus, clamp down on how we've been affected by social media. There's a big difference in using it to better yourself and learn and study, and it to become the dominant driver in your personality and your identity.
Right.
Massive.
That's the key word, dominant driver. Yeah, that's key.
Right. I think, is it mine or yours?
It's my turn to ask you. What's changed of your perception of how, so one of the things, the difference between someone that does da'wah online only, and, you know, you mentioned the keyboard warriors and the people that have nothing, like there's nothing consequential to what they say online institutionally or with their families. It's just blurt and you know, whatever it is. I'm talking about someone that, there are people that do da'wah online and they don't have an in-person role, right? They're not imams, whether paid or not, but they're not involved in their local communities and their grassroots. And then you have people that are involved in their grassroots that are very much so acquainted with their local communities and their local community realities, and then also have an online platform. And all of us have grown over the years, right? All of us have grown over the years. We're still growing, inshallah ta'ala, and that, you know, we change, in the night time, not the Quran and the Sunnah or anything about the deen, but we see certain realities and we try to speak to those realities in a certain way. What is that for you? Like, how have you changed over the last decade, let's take it 10 years, and how you talk about family issues because of your being acquainted with the local community there as well?
You, first of all, you know, I'm a hater, right? I'm an absolute bona fide hater, and I am that guy. So, you know, everybody has to always, when I criticize and I rant, they need to kind of take that with a pinch of salt. That's just who I am. I very, very much dislike that whole online, you know, centered da'wah approach. But I hate myself likewise for saying that, because it's unfair. And the reason that is because just because something is not the asl, the basis of da'wah is absolute human interaction. The deen is what you see day to day. It's your interactions with people. The Prophet ﷺ himself changed the world and created that core that became the nation that it is today because of his interactions. Okay. And all of us, it's such a safety check, such a safety measure for us to be there in front of people so that we do not become the hypocrites that is so easy to become when you are hidden away from the people. You are found out in real life. And those people who claim and talk a good game but do not have the ability to then go or do not attend masajid, are not regular at their fajr, are not there at the community to help those people who just get a reputation for being, you know, people chasing money, making people buy classes like, you know, this one here. If I was not doing this, if this was not being offered free, if I was not teaching these people in the masjid, if I was not being there answering questions for parents who come and whatnot, I'd rather smack my head over the, you know, with a hammer than to be associated with just this online, distant, virtual personality. And as I said, I hate it. I am more worried about those people who do it than the distastefulness of the field. Those folks, so easy for them than just to, as you said, you know, take the lihya off, take the beard off, take the hat off, turn the camera off, and then go back to this different reality. And you might say they're sins. And a person keeps those sins, you know, private, and Allah has kept it private. So what are you worrying about? Everybody sins, but they just sin in different ways. No, there's a big difference between someone who is cutting themselves off of any form of redemption or any way of trying to protect themselves and knowing they're entering into a field where there is no protective mechanism, where they are not in front of the people, where they can be seen. The Prophet ﷺ, when he praised a person saying that you are the shuhada for those people, that you are the witnesses for these folks, that if you think that this person is good, then that person is good, is a reason, because you are seen, you do it, you are making sure that you are you know, maintaining a minimum level, these parts. And if you look at some of the people that we've lost in the da'wah, meaning they've gone to either atheism or they've gone to whatever. These are the steps that happen. They become isolated, whether that's isolated in academia, whether that's isolated in arrogance because they think the rest are not worthy, whether they think that they've got some extra ilham and light and the rest of us are backwards, but they start to isolate themselves. Then you start to believe your own hype, and then you're gone and you join XYZ, you know, or you join Quilliams, or you join whatever it is. So to be held accountable publicly is very, very important. And that's what I have learned. However, I am cautious against myself, because the Prophet ﷺ did say that people will come that will not see me, that will not be here, that will not be hearing firsthand, and their level of iman is this, and they will achieve this, and they will open this. So it's not right to write off the entire Muslims who never come out in public. There are some people, there are some students that I know, right? And obviously in America, that must go by 100 times more. But there are some Muslims that I know in this country that are students. They are living in non-Muslim households, and they're practicing a complete undercover religion, completely undercover. They do not have the ability or the permission to come out. And their iman and their impact upon others is incredible. So, it would be disingenuous of me to just completely write off the whole concept. There are some warriors out there, and I mean in the very best sense, mujahideen of the very, very highest order, that are holding it down. They're studying, memorizing Quran, they're learning Arabic, they're establishing the salah, and they know that at any moment, if that door is opened, or any second that I'm seen outside in this way, they have to go and present themselves in a fashion outside when they go outside that has no connection whatsoever to who they really want to be. So I am careful that I don't completely lose the plot. But no, I do think a public persona, I think local work, I think local accountability is a very important lesson that you learn when you start to become so excited at the beginning. Oh, I've got an online audience. I can do this from my screen. It's so easy. You don't get questioned about it. You don't get challenged about it. I remember Sheikh Yasser saying to me when we were setting up the classes like 10 years ago, and we never had one on mu'amalat, right? And mu'amalat, obviously money matters and so on and so forth. And I said, yeah, so, do it. And he said the reason that nobody's done it is because they don't want to be in public asked the question. It's always easy to teach the theory, but anybody who is from the Tullab al-Ilm, or students of knowledge, or even the scholars, they will know that to be asked in public a question on mu'amalat is not like answering a question on salah or fasting or hajj or whatnot. People have found that it's easy to teach certain subjects from the security of your home and not being in front of a live interaction. And the top Muslims have got to put themselves out there. They've got to prepare better. They've got to be more aware, and they've got to hold themselves accountable with the public. Those are my points. Wallah.
Well, I think on a personal, so everything you said is spot on. And again, nasallallahu afiyah. I think we have to ask ourselves to be protected from those things. And al-insan la yaqa' bil-ghurur aw bil-'ujb. Just the thing. Because, you're involved in your local community, I'm involved in we know what we're talking about. It's not trying to box it. It's actually, I want us to think, if you could sort of give some personal nasiha on how you, having been exposed to the local reality and being someone, you did a ghusl today of Mayyit, right? You're there, you're not just theorizing this stuff online, you're part of the local community. How have your own views changed? Can you speak to, where you think your views have changed in the last decade? On some of these issues that are being discussed in this class, for example.
Yeah, but see, this is my point. Authenticity is what everybody is looking for, right? And so you can either treat this as a badge of honor. I don't just talk the talk, I walk the walk, which to be honest is a bit pathetic, really, okay? Because that's the kind of thing, that's the exact, as you said, al-ujab itself and the ghurur that you would fall into, that heedlessness, or that, being so impressed with myself. I'm not impressed with myself one little bit. It's brilliant to be knocked. And that's as I said, that's the great thing about being out there in the public. Yeah, but you can't hide. You can hide very easily online, just writing and just, and recording videos even, that's a whole different step up when you present yourself. But that's the reason why for the longest time, you always use an anonymous name. Then people start to justify it by using an anonymous Islamic name or a scholarly name, but it's cowards. It's cowardly behavior. This is not religious piety that I don't want people to know that I know so much. This is not the way that it's meant to happen. I'm saying to you that it's a safety valve for you to come. It's a safety mechanism for you to be in front of the people. So that's for me. Every theoretical chapter of knowledge for me has changed and been affected in the last 20 years, in my case, by making sure that everything is real. So zakat, when I teach zakat, I only teach it because I am the one who pays zakat from a professional point of view, from a business point of view, from someone who goes in to help someone and look at their shop, and I go in and he says to me, you know, I have this thing on the, you come to my shop now and have a look at this. You're saying to me, I have £100,000 worth of stock. This £100,000 of stock, £50,000 of it is something that's been there for 3 years. Are you going to charge me now zakat on this £50,000 of 3 years of stock? And I look at that and I think of that very differently. I now think to myself that Imam Malik was absolutely spot on, that there is something that a position in between where if you do have stock that has value but is not selling, then you know what, I'm not going to consider that in the valuation. And that goes against the vast majority of scholars when it comes to zakat. But when you are doing things real life, real business, and when you are then leading Hajj groups, for example, right? How are people teaching fiqh of Hajj and they've never been, or they've only been once or twice, they've not seen what happens? How on earth are people giving relationships they've been married 2-3 years? How are people speaking about, you know, going through failed relationships again and again and again and again, and telling us about how to maintain a relationship? You know, please. How are people talking about what children need and whatever, and they've only got a 3-year-old and a 4-year-old? They've not seen what the kids are going to turn into. This is maddening. So to be accountable, and I'm not just talking authenticity, you've got to have walked the walk, and so therefore now you're the only one who can speak about it, because that's a level of arrogance. We'll close off too many doors. But I'm saying holding yourself accountable to others, that you really do have game in what you're speaking about. It's just not just theory. So that's what I'd say. All right.
Your turn to ask a question.
So,
Do I got to give you a cue?
Huh?
Do I got to give you a cue? Hold up a sign?
That's the difference between me and you. So I'm awake, yeah? Whilst you're reading whatever you're reading. Right. So,
for your information, I was sharing the live stream.
Oh, here we go. Here we go.
And you know what? See that suit of one that you have?
Allah Akbar. I told you to do a watch party. If you have not done a watch party, yeah, I don't care about you. You can't share a link.
I've never done a watch party.
Exactly. That's the whole point. I wanted you to do a watch party to see what actually happens, because I see it all the time. Watch party. I've not been able to do it. Don't know what it is. I thought at least my guy, Big Giant, is going to be the first person, who's going to try it at least.
I press share on the link, man. That's all that counts.
Let's see what happens. All right, here we go. Let's take it real and let's make it serious. UK domestic abuse up 20% from the last 3 weeks. China, divorce rates now in Wuhan tripled. They said the monitoring service, whatever, has seen a tripling also in divorce in Xi'an. Now, for those folks who don't know about China, Xi'an is one of the heavily Muslim areas, relatively speaking. So there'll be Muslims part of that as well. Divorce. So the rates, that's officially, gone all the way to the services. As for the other hundreds of thousands, that are now in the situation where they're living in fear because of their spouse, and again, it goes back to what I said before, they don't even know their partners, they don't even know their families, and now that they're forced to actually be with people who they consider substandard to the A standard online. And you speak about pornography, all right? That is the obvious thing now. People are realizing that pornography is not even just the disgusting nature of it. That's a cheap argument now. It's how much is ruining your future with your wife and your husband, and that's what people are starting to realize, right? So likewise, with this titillation that we're getting with our friends, and even as speakers or giving da'wah or spreading information or receiving information, why on earth would I be bored out my mind with my wife and whatever? Now, when you do then spend time, you realize actually how different you are, or you realize that you're not willing to compromise on your standards, and it's obviously turning into, in worst case, or in bad case, people splitting up and whatever, fitna, and in worst case, abuse. So I know that you got a lot to say about this. So what are you saying?
Oh man, I got a lot to say about it. First of all, just you know, we're actually doing a webinar on Wednesday night, a Yaqeen webinar on family, and about particularly, you know, we're going to talk about how to maintain sakina in the home. And we have Sister Najwa Awad, who's a you know, one of our fellows. She's also a psychiatrist, and Sister Bibi Khan, who runs a domestic violence service out in Houston. Sister Lubna Mullah, a few people. Sheikh Abdullah Duru is going to talk about how to maintain conversations in the home and things of that sort. So it's going to be that's going to be Wednesday night, inshallah, webinar.yaqinistic.org. That's not a shameless plug, but I just think that they're going to say some more value.
It's important because people, listen, people are not willing, and I'm sorry to cut you off, but people are not willing to address this, right?
Right.
The issue is that if we were mature enough to recognize that that difference was always there, those different standards were always there, but address it. Let's sit and talk about it, learn. One of the big things, I'm sorry to have to jump in, because this is something we talk about in the class, all right, and it really does my nut in, is how little respect we have for counseling. And I mean non-Muslim counseling, by the way, because we know that Muslim counselors, they're not that much, right? But people don't realize, or they write off the value of actual professional counselors who have an incredibly positive effect by just putting two people face to face and having that, giving them the confidence to be honest with one another, right? Yeah. And so absolutely plug away and make sure people realize that they have to learn the habit of being self-reflective upon their own egos, their own narcissism, their own identities, and their appreciation of who it is that you're married to and who your kids are, and who you really are. 100% is essential, bro.
Yeah, no, Jazakallah khair, and what you said is really valuable. You know, I was on one of I was actually on a call with a bunch of different leaders from other faith communities 2 days ago, and they were talking about particularly the importance of religious voices sort of filtering out for their communities that view some of these things with deep suspicion, what's good and what's not. And so from us, I mean, I think obviously we need more Muslim counselors. We definitely do, that are not going to violate any of the sensitivities of the deen, that are grounded enough in our ilm to understand, or that at least work in coordination with Islamic scholars to understand that, you know, the things that are specific to the deen. Very few people that are scholars and counselors. That's a very difficult hybrid person to find. There are some people that really, you know, that have not mastery, but have like a really strong competence in both Islamic knowledge as well as counseling. But some of the things that you just mentioned, like when it's something like communication, when it's something that's not a dini in its nature, in terms of a fight over hukuk or rights, or just like the value of having someone to counsel to help you get through communication barriers, help you get through guilt, help you get over things from the past, help you get over trauma. Those are things that are intensely valuable, immensely valuable, and we need to push people towards them. I'll tell you that from my perspective, I'm very surprised, hurt and surprised that there's a growing number of cases, particularly, by the way, of fathers that are violently beating their children right now. Okay, and that's what I'm hearing from a lot of people in my community. People that wouldn't, you know. So there's obviously the fear of an abusive partner, you know, that's striking their spouse. The fear of someone hitting their children. But hitting their children very violently now because of the frustration of the uncertainty of, am I going to get my job back? Am I not going to get my job back? What's going to happen to us? SubhanAllah, it's been heartbreaking. So for me, the messages that I personally received, a lot more domestic violence calls. And this is anecdotal. I don't know what the American stats are right now with the text. I just know that they're rising, and there have been numerous news articles about the rise of domestic violence. But it's not just the spousal thing right now. Like, I've never had more people complain about their spouses hitting their children violently and angrily like I have in the last 2 weeks. Never, subhanAllah, never in my life. I've been through Hurricane Katrina, so I've been through that disaster where there's uncertainty, people out of their homes, and sort of communities in refugee status, and the violence that comes with that. But the thing with Katrina was that you didn't have families living together as in one unit of a family. People moved into shelters or other houses, and they all kind of stacked in, so it kind of offset some of that particular tension. But right now, people being closed in together, Now's the time for us to really try to demonstrate sabr, patience with one another, and to actually, I think that one of the best ways to offset tension is to acknowledge that the tension is there. To say like, look, I'm struggling with this right now, and I need you to help me. And if I'm a little more, if I'm suddenly defensive, or if I'm getting louder, it's because of my uncertainty with this. And I apologize in advance. I'm going to try to maintain it. So actually saying like, look, there is a tension. This is not easy for me, and I'm going through something right now. So especially spousal, like, I need you to help me, check me with myself and the way that I'm talking to the kids right now, so that frustration doesn't get out of hand and then lead to something undesirable or violent with you or with the children. And that's both ways. That's husband and wife. They're unique challenges that could set off either one right now. So very clear. I'm not just hearing about dads hitting their kids. Moms that have never struck their children before, hitting their children for the first time in a very hard way. Fathers that are like, I had, a guy that's super calm. Like, I never imagined this guy to be violent, punched this 5-year-old in the face, closed fist. And his wife is like, I've never seen him go into a fit of rage like that. Right. So we have to be vulnerable with ourselves to say to our spouses, like, look, I'm feeling this uncertainty, this deep tension right now. I want you to be aware of it. How can we work through it? How do we talk through it? Let's kind of revisit it together about what we can do. Now, the problem becomes when you have a partner that's not willing to talk about that type of stuff, right? That's just in constant violent rage. And I think that's where, we have to start to offer some very unique solutions, inshallah ta'ala, considering the fact that it's not like I can just go to my friend's house right now. I can't just go to a friend's house. I can't go talk to someone. I can't go sit with the imam or the counselor in person right now. How do I quickly, make the most of this? And I hope that the institutions that deal with tranquility in the homes will, inshallah ta'ala, rise to the occasion, and we support them in doing so, so that they can help manage it with the unique constraints of this crisis. In a domestic violence victim not being able to get the support the way that she or he might have been able to in the past, or how do you get a counselor on Skype or Zoom? It's not ideal, but sorry, did you lose me? While it's not ideal,
you're back. Yeah, you're back.
Okay. While it's not ideal, it's better than nothing, right? And so getting someone, people that put off counseling, say when quarantine is over, lockdown's over, and we can go get counseling done. No, get it done now. Find someone that's going to take it over a Zoom call from now, inshallah ta'ala, so that you can start to nip those in the bud, because these are unique challenges and things are very volatile. Can set off really quickly. So hyper self-awareness, inviting the other person to check you, and having that type of relationship, not just in how you're dealing with each other, but if there are kids in the house, like, hey, was I too rough? Let me know, pull me back, remind me. Let's try to work through this, and let's acknowledge that tension that's in the house right now because of all of this.
Now, Jazakallah khair, because, and by the way, everybody, this is now where last 8-9 minutes, and then we close, and we've got to Sheikh Omar as the last question to close with. I'll say this, that these people keep putting it off, not being honest with themselves, or not having confidence to deal with it, or we'll sort it out later. They need to realize that this is a long haul. People thinking that it's going to be done according to bloody Easter, according to flipping, yeah, I don't want to cuss him any more than he deserves.
No, you cuss him all you want.
The problem is that our cusses and our language is not suitable for your audience, bro. So the him, right? He is obviously, has got a big eye on the whole economy, and we're all focused on that. But this is a long game, and even if it ends, people's jobs are not coming back immediately. And we know that people are under a lot of stress and financial. I mean, these are not excuses, but it's the point is that people thinking that it's going to get back to normal. It's not. So it needs to be. All right. Anyway, so this last question, then, bro, is yours, and then we.
Last question to you is that you teach pure Pesa, and you teach this stuff on family, and you brought up the financial constraints and difficulties. One of the things that's going to happen very quickly are the fatwa that are going to allow things that are ordinarily haram to be made halal, because of darurat, tabih al-mahdurat, al-mashaqqatu tajlib al-taysir. People are in difficulty. They're going to need to take jobs, whatever job they can find, conventional mortgage. I might have to, I don't know how the case is in the UK, but I might have to put my house on a conventional mortgage now because the Islamic companies are too high. How Islamic are they in the first place? A lot of questions are going to come suddenly. Like, you know, Majma' al-Fiqh, Amjad put out the fatwa here. You know, they're respected ulama, teachers, right, about the certain small business administration loans right now for masajid that need to pay the bills, and so they're ribawi loans unless you can pay within a grace period. But that's, you know, these are questions that are really going to come up. What are some sort of guiding principles right now as we go into that space where people are going to have to, someone that really has a lot of taqwa, and the only job they get is work in a grocery store, you know, or doing, you know, the equivalent of whatever Uber Eats is in the UK, driving things around. I've got to deliver haram. I've got to work in haram. I never wanted to take haram. And what are some guiding principles? And I want to add one layer to that too. I know it's a long question, but you know, like people bear a lot of, people are going to feel some resentment towards Allah Azza wa Jalla as well. Why did I get put in this situation? But uniquely, I tried to stay away from haram. Why am I in a haram situation of earning right now as well? It's a loaded question. Sorry, but
it's a loaded question.
Yeah.
Worst question ever. Question yani miles off the topic. Question yani 7 hours required. Question yani that is going to make me the enemy of all the people. What did I do to you? What? Because I showed you a picture of you being a gangster. This is what my jaza. And it was a nice edited picture. It was you were looking young.
It wasn't edited. Just FYI. I think they edited you. They photoshopped you a bit.
As long as you admit that I'm added afterwards, yeah. Listen, obviously in the time that we have left, I can only say this, that there's no doubt that the Sharia is there to help people in what they think are impossible situations. As you said, al-mushaqqa tajlib at-taysir, that difficulty brings ease. When a situation becomes difficult, it becomes then easier from an Islamic ruling to try and give a solution. The Sharia will allow certain things which are haram in a desperate moment. But you've also heard the phrase that these fatwa, which are to be gone to in an emergency, that a person should try to exhibit a taqwa qabla al-fatwa. Try to be as one with the deen of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as you absolutely possibly can before you're forced. And you know what I mean by that is that we need to calibrate ourselves what we think we can handle. All right, because it's very easy to just say, you know, I don't think I can do that, or I have to, I must. It's a necessity. And the definition of necessity in the books of fiqh is one thing, and then in real life it becomes something completely different, and desires get involved. And one of the, you know, obviously these trials are sent by Allah. Let's not, you know, whitewash this virus. It is a real trial, and it's a severe punishment for the people who will fail it, and it's a great blessing for those people who will respond correctly. So if we're not learning on this trial, learning on the job, then it's become a punishment for us. So one of the things that we must learn is how it changes our mindset, and how many of us have realized that we are now able to be sufficient more than we used to before, that we could give up certain luxuries that we didn't think possible, that the issue of space, how ingenious, I mean, he says, might sound menial, but how we reappropriate space in our houses, for example, how we reappropriate things, that like how much we've realized that now that we don't have an income, we would take the car less, for example. If we need to go and get shopping, we'll now walk instead. The idea of, and everything, as you said at the beginning of this session, you said this is a world event that will change life forever. And it really has, and it's being forced upon us, but life can change as much as it wants. If our mindset doesn't change, then we haven't succeeded. So we have to be able to be folks that realize that, you know what, if I have to now spend less, if I have to eat less out, eat different qualities of food, if I have to move to a smaller place, then I think I can do it. You've got to challenge yourself. You've got to press the reset. You've not got to assume who you were before and what mazan, luxuries you were expecting before. You have to go through that whole process before you can make use. And we've already given these fatwa. Sheikh Walid and Amjad itself, and the fiqh councils, and here in the UK ourselves as well, and around the world, lots of fatwa are being given which are extraordinary fatwa, changing the haram into halal because of the circumstances. That's not the difficult part. The difficult part is you justifying yourself at a personal level that you are the true recipient or the needy one of that fatwa. And I'm not saying that you're not. And that's what the scholars, the reason we put it there is to help people out. But are you that person who needs that help? I'll give an example. At the moment here in the UK, the sports kind of industry at the moment, they're under a lot of pressure from the public. So football, right? It has huge income, hundreds of millions of pounds, and they have lots of staff. And they have the ability from their profits to carry on paying these staff and then also, maintain them on the books, even though, you know exactly what's happening, same in the States. These football clubs are now going to the government for handouts to pay those people, despite having the ability to actually pay, but obviously it would reduce their profits massively. They're coming under immense public attack and they're being embarrassed in the public. And these are institutions that are loved, they're adored, they're worshipped, which goes to show that, and we're not even talking religion here, we're not even talking eternal values and proper morals, we're talking just the entertainment industry, where people are being named and shamed of going to the option for the handout for the fatwa. They're going for the fatwa. They're not showing the taqwa. They're not putting the hardship upon themselves. And I'm not saying that you've got to kill yourself before you take a fatwa, but I'm saying that you do need to reassess exactly what you think is absolutely necessary and what is. And if you have done that and you can stand in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and know that you tried your best and there was a need, then you don't need to worry about anything after that. Your action of haram is not haram in the slightest. Once, that's the whole point, that we take their responsibility. That's the blessing of the senior scholars. When they give that fatwa, they took it that they will stand in front of Allah and they say that we wanted to give them a solution in an impossible situation. And that solution is an action which they do, and it's not haram at all. It's like in a normative circumstance. So that's there, but we can't help the people recalibrate. We can't do the learning of the lesson themselves. That's what I'll say in the short time that we have. I think so. I just want to make sure that I'm not going to mess this up.
Well, you're
okay.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi.
I knew I was going to mess that up. Salam.
Hold on, don't we have parting words for each other? Is that it, man? You just dropped me like that? I gave you your 1.5 hours.
I know that if I go into this parting words, whatever, I'm going to mess it up. Okay.
I had poetry for you.
Poetry, Allah. Okay. Because I know Hafsa is better with, you do this a lot with Hafsa in your webinars and whatever. And me,
Beisharam is what I get called by the way. I didn't call you Beisharam.
Beisharam. These are phrases which are only reserved for your leader, man. That flipping.
All right, man. Well, look, I'm gonna miss you in Hajj. I pray that Allah Azza wa Jal open the doors for us again. Jazakumullah khairan. May Allah Azza wa Jal open the doors and lift this. Jazakallah khair for the good that you're doing for your community, all the ghusl, the amwat that you're doing, and I know that's taking a toll on you emotionally as well. So may Allah Azza wa Jal reward you. I know you always put up that front with that laughter, but I know it's taking a toll on you. May Allah reward you for all the dead that you have washed and properly sent off into the next phase. May Allah Azza wa Jal grant you the reward of their deeds as well. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala facilitate more of that. And يعني كنت مريض يعني قد مرضت من كورونا ولكني برئت من نظري إليك يا
Listen, if you're going to give parting words, make that a parting word. Explain what you said, what happened, and what I said. Go for it.
No, look, okay.
They don't know. They don't know.
They don't know. I thought I had the virus. I've been sick for the last couple of weeks. Alhamdulillah, I tested negative. Alhamdulillah. Abu Isa was upset that I didn't test negative. He said he wanted me to test positive. He was hoping I would have tested positive. So I'm kind of, I didn't know what to make of that. So after all those sweet parting words, I don't know what's up. I don't know what's up with you wanting me to come down with COVID. But explain yourself, man. You open the door.
I'm not going to explain myself at all. You're going to explain why you are now thinking, good point, where you had your dang moment.
I'm sorry. I don't see any. The only thing was I would have been able to get out of this. I would have been able to be like, hey man, it came back positive. I can't do this anymore. That would have been the silver lining of it all. But
look, on a serious note, obviously clinically we know that it's an incredibly obviously I have a medical background. I look at this in a different way. It's a fascinating condition. COVID and the virus itself as well. The amount of anecdotal studies the science is following as well, that's showing how many people have gone through symptoms, have had it, and they are asymptomatic all the way, and others have very mild symptoms. My point is that if you've gone through all of the mission of being ill, all the headache of being ill, being out of the thing, and then at the end you're told you didn't even flip and have it, yeah? What a waste of time that was. So my point is that if you do have it, as many, then just like amongst the volunteers today, so I chose amongst a group of people that I was training, I chose the one who had corona, right? I chose him.
You threw it on somebody? Is that what you're doing now?
He felt like that, I tell you that much. So when I was going around to choose who's going to actually physically help me in this, that was my criteria, because I'm now going to invest my time in me and you physically now doing this ghusl, because you are going to make sure that when I'm not able to do it, you're going to do it, because you will not have an excuse, because you will not infect people around you and other volunteers around you. We do believe in that the antibodies will have that protective.
I mean, I'll hear all of those that are struggling with it.
Oh my goodness,
those
man.
that are
Heroes out there, bro.
Yeah,
Telling
I give them all shifa.
like there's a lot of incredible people out there that are doing a lot of great work, and just the fadl of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you know, that a lot of eyes are being opened. As I said, this is an event that many of us have never seen, and we hope that nothing like that comes back again. And but we've got to learn from it. You know, it's an incredible opportunity as well, subhanAllah. It's an incredible opportunity. So listen, Jazakumullah khair. Hafsa, please close this in the right way. What is it that needs to be said?
Okay, Jazakumullah khair. Thank you, first of all, Sheikh Omar, for your patience with Sheikh Abu Isa's hosting.
Wow. Wow, girl went in, man. What?
Right there. So, but subhanAllah, that was an amazing session. Jazakumullah khair to both of you, Sheikh Abu Isa and Sheikh Omar, for being so kind of open and sharing your own familial experiences. I think that helps everyone learn and you know, take from it and apply it to their own lives. Now, assalamu alaikum everyone. This is Sister Hafsa. I'm your host for Al Maghrib Online. This session and any of the previous one we had with Sheikh Yasser Qadi, you are going to want to listen for the next couple of minutes, inshallah. Sheikh Omar, you're welcome to kind of dip out. We won't drag you on for it any longer. But
don't ever put me on a panel with Abu Isa again, all right? That's my condition. I did not sign up for this.
I will forward that, inshallah.
All right, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi.
Please do stick around for one more minute, inshallah. I just want to introduce you to the whole point of this session. And if you enjoyed the content that we went through here, you are going to want to join the Protect This House course, which is closing this Wednesday, April 8th, inshallah, at midnight Eastern Standard Time. You will want to jump on that because a lot of these hard-hitting, deep topics that our communities are struggling with right now, when it comes to our familial relationships, when it comes to our marriages, even if you're not married, if you're post-marriage, divorced, widowed, etc., if you have children, if you're struggling with your relationship with your children, anything that affects you in a relationship manner in your community, if you have toxic relationships, anything that you have a struggle with, inshallah, this course is so comprehensive with over 25 hours of content, a live sessions with Sheikh Abu Isa, 5 of them to answer all the questions I know you were submitting in this session here, and unfortunately we couldn't get to them to kind of keep the conversation going, but you will have plenty of opportunities to tackle all the questions that you have, tackle all the difficulties that you have in your relationships, and inshallah, while you have this time at home, while you're reflecting and you're kind of stuck and trapped with your familial relationships as well, to kind of turn the entire course leading up to Ramadan. I encourage you all to visit almaghrib.online. That's almaghrib.online, and register for the course, or at least to find out more information about what we cover. If you have any questions, you can also reach out to us on the chat or in the email online@almaghrib.org. I encourage you to join us in the course. There's going to be way too much more of this to come, inshallah. I think you'll get sick of both myself and Sheikh Abu Isa by the end of it, but you'll be better for it, inshallah. So jazakumullah khair everyone for joining us for these live sessions. Inshallah, the recording will also be sent to you if you have been subscribed on almaghrib.online, and we look forward to really seeing you in that course, Protect This House, closing on April 8th. First live session Q&A is going to be April 9th, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, everyone.
Alaikum salam. Jazakumullah khair, Hafsa.